In the quiet darkness of a February night in Los Angeles, Hollywood lost one of its brightest young stars. On February 12, 1976, 37-year-old Sal Mineo, the gentle faced actor who had once been a teen idol, collapsed in the carport of his West Hollywood apartment. He had just returned from a theater rehearsal when a single stab to the heart felled him. It happened in an instant. The star of Rebel Without a Cause lay dying on cold pavement. The boy who once stared wistfully into the camera was gone too soon. But decades earlier, Sal Mineo's story looked very different. Born in the Bronx in 1939 to Italian American parents, Mineo stumbled into acting as a child. Everything changed when director Nicholas Ray cast him as Don Plato Crawford in Rebel Without a Cause. His portrayal of the lonely, wistful teenager was so powerful that the Academy nominated him for Best Supporting Actor at only 17 years old, making him one of the youngest nominees ever. Overnight, Sal Mineo became a household name. Suddenly, Mineo was America's sweetheart. Teen magazines plastered his dark, melancholy eyes on their covers, and everywhere he went, fans surged around him. He received thousands of letters from young female fans and was mobbed at public appearances. He even found brief fame as a singer. In 1957, he recorded two top 40 pop singles, one of which, Start Moving, reached number 9 and sold over a million copies. By the late 1950s, Mineo was on TV variety shows and movie screens from coast to coast. Some called him Hollywood's switchblade kid after a tough guy role, but under the nickname, his image was pure boy next door, warm, vulnerable, unforgettable. Yet that early triumph carried a hidden cost. Hollywood loved Mineo's sensitive persona and then kept casting him in that same mold. In film after film, he played variations of the same wounded youth. In Giant, he was the grieving brother. In Crime in the Streets, a troubled kid in gangs. Many of his subsequent roles were variations of his role in Rebel Without a Cause, and he was typecast as a troubled teen. In other words, the industry froze him in adolescence. The sweet boy who cried on screen was suddenly stuck, with no room to grow up on film. As Mineo aged, he began to feel the walls closing in. By the early 1960s, he was too old to play Plato, yet Hollywood still only saw Plato in him. At the same time, whispers about Sal's private life began to spread. Rumors of his homosexuality quietly made studio executives wary of him. But by 1960s, those rumors led casting directors to consider him inappropriate for leading roles. He was suddenly unwanted. Mineo later summed it up himself. One minute, it seemed I had more movie offers than I could handle. Next, no one wanted me. Overnight, roles dried up, and with them went his dreams. The boy who had seemed destined for stardom was now invincible. In private, Mineo felt the tension between his public face and his real self. He had dated English actress Jill Haworth. They were engaged at one point, yet he knew he was different. By 1972, he could no longer hide or pretend. In an interview with Bose Hadley, Mineo did something almost unheard of for Hollywood. He openly confirmed that he was bisexual. It was a brave declaration in an era when few stars admitted such things. In the limelight, he remained a smiling young lead. Behind closed doors, he was honest about who he loved. Hollywood tolerated his truth only quietly, but it was far from the secretive life most actors lived. With movie offers gone, Mineo turned earnestly to the theater. He studied acting method, worked off Broadway, and sought creative outlets where his identity would not be a liability. In 1969, he produced and directed a Los Angeles production of Fortune and Men's Eyes, a gritty, controversial play about homosexuality in a prison. It was raw and daring, far from the keen romances of his past, but on that stage he could be himself at last. He also appeared occasionally on television, a guest spot on The Patty Duke Show, episodes of Combat and Columbo. Yet, nothing in Hollywood fully revived his film career. Even after his Golden Globe and a second Oscar nod for Exodus, his film work declined precipitously thereafter. The industry had changed, and Sal found himself on the outside. Despite setbacks, Mineo never stopped fighting for his art. By the mid 1970s, he had begun a quiet comeback. He took a leading role in P.S. Your Cat is Dead, a dark comedy about a burglar, a role that oddly echoed the complicated parts he'd always loved. The play opened in San Francisco to good reviews. Critics praised Mineo's performance and noted how his intensity gave the role depth. By late 1975, he had moved the production to Los Angeles, hoping to finally reclaim some of the success he once knew. For the first time in years, Hollywood buzz returned, if only faintly, and Mineo allowed himself to hope again. Then, fate intervened. On that winter evening in 1976, Mineo wrapped up rehearsal and drove home to his apartment. He parked and climbed the stairs, perhaps thinking of dinner or what songs to practice next. But in the dark hallway, a young thief lurked instead of a friend. In a single moment of horror, Sal Mineo was ambushed. The attacker, a 19-year-old pizza delivery man, stabbed him straight through the heart as he walked past. Mineo slumped to the floor, calling out for help. Neighbors found him lying in the parking alley, bleeding profusely. Paramedics rushed in, but it was too late. Sal Mineo died there on the spot at age 37. His life poured out of him in a second. The news sent shock waves through those who knew him and those who still remembered him. A once promising career had ended in randomness. The killer never even knew who Mineo was. Authorities soon captured the attacker, and he was convicted of murder. Still, the reality was hard to digest. For an industry so used to scripted drama, the star's life had been snuffed out by a single senseless act. Over the years, many myths sprouted. Some imagined a targeted hate crime. In truth, it was nothing more than a robbery gone wrong, a tragic coincidence rather than a vendetta. Today, Sal Mineo is remembered not for how he died, but for the spirit he carried. On film, he remains frozen in time, the sad-eyed Plato who yearned for love, the gentle Holocaust survivor in Exodus, the brave Navajo warrior in Cheyenne Autumn, the jazz musician in the Gene Krupa story. He showed vulnerability when few did, and strength when he had to. He was one of the first Hollywood actors to live openly as he was, turning what Hollywood deemed a weakness into his art. As one biographer wrote, Sal Mineo achieved greatness as a gay man, and did not die because of it. It's that greatness we remember, his talent, his kindness, and his courage to be himself. In the end, Sal Mineo's story is both a warning and a remembrance. It reminds us that even the brightest young stars are fragile, that fame cannot shield someone from loneliness or violence. But it also shows how brightly one person can shine, even if only for a short time. For an entire generation, he was the sensitive rebel we adored. For today's viewers, he was a face of lost innocence and unfulfilled promise. Hollywood couldn't make him safe, but it can preserve his memory. Every time we see his face flicker on a theater screen or TV, we remember Sal Mineo lived with honesty and heart. His life was too brief, but the light he left behind endures. If you believe in honoring the past with accuracy and respect, we invite you to subscribe to Echoed and help us keep these essential stories alive for the next generation.